Classes in session.
Glitter hair.
Welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session, guys. Listen, every time Stacey comes here to do a podcast, she breaks our sound equipment.
That's absolutely false.
I have done 3 seasons of podcasts. Want to know the 2 times I have had technical difficulties surrounding audio?
I'm just used to working with professionals.
You?
That's
And
the
you,
difference.
2 different times. She
Terrible.
broke them. These tiny little Whoville things.
They're
They
pretty
don't-
cute.
Garbage.
The Lorax.
Listen, guys. This is Stacey Green.
Hello. You might know me as Stacey Green Living.
Stacey Green Living. And
Well,
as you
she's
can
so
see-
tall. Is that a birthmark?
For those not watching,
I have a
Stacey
birthmark.
has a giant birthmark on the side of her face.
A thumbprint. I don't know if I'd say giant. It's not like Gorbachev. Wait, what's his name?
Gorbachev? Chef, not Choff. I think it's a
Sorry.
chef.
Not like that.
Not like, you know.
I also have a stick issues voice.
She
today.
does. She does. I tested her when she walked in. I think you just spat on me a little
Oh,
bit.
I'm so sorry.
It's probably good we don't have a microphone.
Probably.
Listen, you guys must be thinking, if you're watching us right now, Joanna and Stacey are going to do a beautiful podcast about Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
Listen.
Joy, happiness,
Joy, happiness,
peace.
peace.
False.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. I was going to say TikTok. We're not doing that podcast today. Actually, we might be doing the opposite because we are doing a full podcast on. Go ahead, Stacey.
Divorce.
That's right.
Jazz
That's right.
hands.
Listen, going into this holiday season, I feel like
Who doesn't
this
want to
is
talk
a
about
dangerous. For me, however many years ago, Stace, this was the moment.
Oh yeah.
What day is it today?
It was the same time.
It
It's
was-
the 10th.
It was, guys.
It really was.
We have to go back a few years, but and no, I'm not referring to Anna. Sometimes when I talk about divorce, I get all these messages on my thing going, "Oh my God, did you break up? When did you get divorced?" I'm like, no, not Anna, completely other person. But yeah, it was now
Voldemort.
Voldemort. Why doesn't Voldemort have a nose? Do you think
They explain it actually.
in the movie?
No, in the books they talk about. I think it's because he takes on so much of a snake persona, or because of the parcel tongue and all that jazz.
So you have to lose your nose?
Yeah, that's right.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I can't back that up.
On a side note, I've just sent away for some Dobby pens.
Oh my gosh, do they have Dobbies on the top of them?
Yeah.
That's
I saw a Dobby in Hallmark and it was like $150 and it was plastic because I thought it was going to be a nice like figure. Like I have all those figures around the house. It was not. Anyways, what?
Who goes into Hallmark anymore?
I do. I bought. That's where I buy a lot of those little figurines.
You're the only
in
one.
Hallmark.
You and all
It
the
was
Beverleys.
busy,
You
and
and the
everybody-
Beverleys and the Bettys going to
everybody's
get all their
over
cards.
60.
That's you. Joe's
I don't-
over 60. Next year. This year. This year is the year.
This year's the year. Listen, we're
so
going to talk
sorry.
about divorce. So I've talked about it a lot.
Have you?
Well, not in a like a little bit in a podcast, but mostly people ask me questions on a TikTok. But people are so interested for 2 reasons. Number one,
We've both been divorced.
we've both been divorced.
Side note.
Very different sort of paths.
For sure.
And we're going to talk about it very painfully, openly. But I think it resonates with people because people want to know we've all gone down the same horrific
Yeah.
road. You know what I mean? And you
For sure.
feel some sort of, you don't feel as stupid. You don't feel as you know,
I think
failed.
trauma brings people together. No, for real though. It's like if you're going through a terrible circumstance, you want to know somebody else that has gone through it, how they got through it, and that there is another side to it, right? Like how do I get to that part quicker if possible? I think it's just a comfort, camaraderie.
Where do you want to start? Let's start with, should we start with you?
Sure.
Okay, because chronologically you got divorced first.
I sure did.
All right, so let's go. Give us the story.
The synopsis.
The synopsis, however you want to give it.
I got married in 2006, and I was
You were what, about 32?
Oh, I was 26. But I had been with my then husband, since I was 19. And it was more like I think my marriage and my kind of relationship trajectory was what you assume it should be, right? Like you dated just out of high school, early 20s, the next logical step, pardon me, if nothing is glaringly wrong, is you get married.
Right.
It's just the hetero way, right? Like you get married. What are we gonna do next? Oh, we're gonna have a baby. Like you buy a house. I felt like
You didn't have a baby right away. You waited a bit, didn't you?
Not really.
No.
Not really. 2 years.
So.
Not even. I got pregnant and then I had him.
Oh,
2 years. So
really?
It was pretty quick, but we'd already been together for like 7.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And my husband still is, he's not my husband anymore, 7 years older than me.
Right.
So that was later for him. You know,
Right.
he was in his early 30s, and it was just kind of like, I felt like I was fulfilling a path I thought I had to, checking boxes along the way, and in hindsight, it was not the path.
Okay, try to forget in hindsight.
All right.
Because it's really easy to go back, and in hindsight, I should have done that. I could have seen it coming a mile away.
Of course.
But in the moment, so you're...
No, I did see it coming a mile away.
You did see it coming a mile away.
For sure.
You did. But in the moment, did you see it? Like,
yeah.
You're saying you saw it, but in the moment, did you have those pauses go, this is going to go badly?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I didn't think it was going to go badly. I just thought, which is terrible to say, but this is all honesty, right? Like, I just kind of thought one time divorced would be okay. You know, like...
So you came to that, and this was all before anything else happened. Like
I didn't go into the marriage being like, I'm going to get divorced, but it was a very plausible exit plan.
And really?
Yeah. Because
you're standing at the altar, you're thinking, that's all right.
Yeah, I have an out.
I have an out.
If I need it. If this doesn't go the way I thought.
That's
but
amazing.
And the thing with my marriage was that nothing was ever wrong. I've said this a million times. I've said this to him. He and I are still friends, but I mean, he might tell you differently, but we are much to his dismay. It was like I married my brother, you know, like there was never any problem. We were very similar, which meant I don't like to talk. And neither did he.
Oh, there's a problem.
A huge problem, right? We're very similar. We never delved into things because truly there weren't things to delve into surface-wise. It wasn't like we had this glare, like he was an alcoholic or I was a gambler or, you know, like...
You do have a problem, but...
We fought all the time. We didn't. And when we did fight, though, we fought like teenagers, honestly, because we've been together so long.
Right.
You know, like it wasn't... I remember this one time, because that's how we'd fight. We'd be like, can I swear?
Sure.
On this one? Okay. But so we got in a disagreement about something. I couldn't even tell. Yeah, right. I couldn't even tell you what it was about. And I was with my friend at the time and I was on the phone and I was like, you know what? Fuck you. And I hung up. And then she said, give me your phone. I'm going to respond to him in a like...
responsible way.
Yeah. In a very like...
an adult.
Professional adult. So she wrote out this well-worded like... This is how I feel, and I see your perspective, and la 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 la.
A lot of I statements.
Totally. This whole paragraph, and she sent it, and she was like, there you go. And he texted back maybe 3 minutes later, and I looked at it, and I turned my phone, and all it said was,
who is this?
Fuck you! Exclamation mark. And I was like, yeah, I can't. This is just not how we operate. Like all your big wordy whatever, you know, because we were fighting like kids.
But do you think that's not how you operate? Because, like, if you're so similar, nobody's bringing anything new to the table.
For sure.
So if nobody's bringing anything new to the table, you know, but I mean, the opposite is also true.
He
like,
also
too divergent is problematic.
Taught me a lot. Truly, I didn't have parents really at that point. Like I really didn't. Like,
yeah, them growing up.
Well, my mom died when I was 14, and then my dad, I was on my own after that pretty much. I lived with my dad, but this was an older relationship, right? Like, I did learn a lot from him, and, you know, not in a bad way. I definitely learned a ton about myself and whatever, but I think the older I got, the longer we were together, I learned probably the lessons I should have learned earlier, what I wanted, you know, like became more glaringly obvious that this wasn't it.
Right. But at the end of the day, and we will come back to this obviously, but at the end of the day, I think that we assume, especially like, you know, when I got married obviously after you, but it was a long time ago. We assume there's a level of maturity in people that I think only right this minute people are starting to challenge. Do you know what I mean? Like right this minute. Now, some people would be like, yeah, but when your grandma got married, she was 19 and they stayed together forever and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, I think we've almost slowed down, and I also would challenge this. In my grandma's day, at 14, she was out of school, she had a job, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Totally different responsibility, whereas
For sure. Could
for
she
our
get a bank
age,
account by herself though? You know, like there's a very different societal.
well, yeah, but what I
expectation.
mean is that we expected a lot more from younger kids back
Yeah.
then, so they had to grow. Kids were working in the friggin' mines. Get a job.
Yeah.
You're 14. Have you seen Newsies? That they all worked.
Yeah.
And so we had this adult expectation for kids, and then when they got married at 20, 21, they had to have already figured out because they were already outwards doing everything else. Whereas for us, for our culture now, right? You go to high school, you go to university, even if you don't go to university, there's this buffer zone of what it is to be an adult and be on your own and really figure stuff out. So I think that maturing process we've elongated it.
I hope so. I would love it if my kids know who they are before they get into a partnership.
It's just such a hard, and we'll come to that.
It is, but it's also like
You have to end your story.
you don't know until you know, right? Like you don't,
true.
and that's just it.
So
So
then what?
so
Your story's better on your end
then
than my
what?
story.
Is my story better? No, it's not.
I don't know.
Is divorce better?
You guys could decide whose seat you'd rather be sitting in to
Yeah.
go through this. I think at the end of the day, we both came out better. So I guess we
Yeah.
both had to do what we
So
had to
I knew my present wife there at the same time, and there was definitely an emotional overlap. Like I didn't have an affair
do. Right.
physically, but I definitely developed feelings emotionally after. Well, I'd been with my husband. I mean, married. We've been married for about 3 years, but we've been together for 12. Like,
Yeah.
and it was a long relationship. And having somebody else that I was like, oh, this is the kind of connection
There you go.
that I think that I've wanted this whole
Right.
time, that I had been looking for subconsciously. But, you know, ending a marriage is terrible. It's a terrible, breaking someone's heart is terrible. It's awful. I would not recommend it if you can avoid it. But it kind of came down to this, like, it was really like a fight or flight. It was like, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it'll be 20 years from now and I'll have had 2 more kids and they'll be like, fuck. Like,
what did I do?
I knew,
Yeah.
you knew, Stacey, but why were you not brave enough to do it? You know? So I did it and it was awful. It was terrible. It was a terrible, especially with kids involved, you know, it was just a terrible couple years of heartbreak and logistics and figuring it all out. But you do get through it and it's way better now.
Do you think if you would have, when you were younger, had you met other women, like, do you think it's a gay thing? Do you think it was a partner thing?
Yeah, I don't, because I know it's a big joke, haha, but I don't feel gay, like I feel bisexual.
I can't. Oh, well, that's
I'm
fine.
definitely bisexual.
Sorry, I thought you were just being like, I don't feel
No.
gay.
I'm obviously one of the letters.
Right.
I just, you know, which one?
Of the...
Which one am I?
Depends
I
on
don't
the
know.
day.
It depends on the day. I'm one of the letters, but it really is a person thing for me. It's
Right.
not. I don't think it was like, oh, I love women.
But do you think, like, because you attest to that emotional connection, and do you think though that, because I know you say this, and I'm not trying to talk you out of your bisexuality at all, because if I have to hear about John Mayer anymore, I'm gonna throw it.
John? Do you watch this podcast?
Of course he does. But that emotional connection, I'm just wondering, do you think you could achieve that with a guy? And not because guys can't be great and guys can't be emotional, and I honestly think it's a socialization thing, because women are so sort of informed by a certain set of sort of gender expectations and socialization. And the thing you felt with your partner now, do you think you could ever, even though physically you find guys attractive, do you ever think you could have that with a guy?
I think it'd have to be a very specific man. I don't think the majority.
A little bit of gay.
Yeah, honestly,
I'm
maybe a
saying.
bisexual man. I
Right?
don't.
And I don't think it's because they're
It's not impossible. No,
Yeah.
for
I think
sure.
it's hard though.
It is systemically difficult for men to have, you know, access to their
Yeah.
emotional well, you know, like it's not necessarily through any fault of their own, but I think I could, but it would have to be very specific on a
Because I think,
man.
Hilariously enough, you walk with a lot of, I would say, not aesthetically, but masculine qualities.
For sure.
And that's why the two of you are the same and you fought like teenagers.
For sure.
Because you fought like teenager boys.
100%.
So I think having your
I have a
partner
masculine
now,
energy.
right?
For sure I do.
Which is hysterical because, you know, people would say she has aesthetically, she'd be like, oh no, she's more, no.
We were even
not.
talking at the party last night about like somebody who'd cut themselves using a table saw or whatever, and I was like, that's not my bag. I'm not that lesbian. And they were like, but if it came down to you or Lou, I was like, oh no, yeah, I would be operating the skill saw for sure.
Exactly.
If it was down to one of us. But yeah, it would have to be I don't know, it's tricky with men because I'm not necessarily attracted to an effeminate man, but
right. Where do you get that? Well, it's the same thing.
It's I don't know.
It's Lou's shell.
My third marriage. We'll see. We'll see what it's going to be.
Question, right now, do you still have, well, there's a way out?
I don't.
So you don't ever think that?
No, I don't.
Interesting.
I don't think that anymore.
So it was all just...
You know what? It like really, I wish, so many times I was like, man, I wish that he would just cheat on me.
No.
Truly, because then that was
it's a big marker, sure.
That's a reason.
You're just pushing the person to be a dick.
Yeah, because then that is a tangible, I can be like, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm out. Whereas me having to be like, I'm just not happy.
Yeah.
This is not for me. This is not what I want. Is selfish.
Well, no.
It's not, but it's selfish. It's like, I'm making decisions that affect 3 people because...
Sure.
Because of what?
But is it selfish? This is a great question because we're going to come to my divorce in a minute. And, initially I would have said all of those things because I was very angry. At this point, again, however many years ago, I was basically living at your house. Mm-hmm. Because I don't... And even for that, I don't consider it selfish anymore. I consider it because if you stay...
Yeah, no. Like, her leaving wasn't the problem necessarily. Maybe the way.
Well, sure, but the staying is the problem. Now, here's the big crux of it, though, and this is the bigger issue, is that, and I got married, obviously, later. I was 34.
Were you?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I know. So you would think that I would have... all those things that you're talking about where you know yourself and everything's happier. I thought at 34 I had it on lock.
Yeah.
I did not. So I don't know. And this is the thing for me is that I don't know if you need something, or maybe just me, you needed something infinitely cataclysmic to actually shake me to my core so I knew. So I could figure. So I had to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
Because
no, you weren't gonna leave.
No. But how you get to know who you are.
Yeah.
I say this to my students all the time. I say, and that's why when people say, "What's the one thing you advocate for young people?" Like your one thing, go get a therapist. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you have any. It's not about a problem. It's not about it. Mm-hmm. Forget everything else. Just figure out. How do I find a line and try to get to know myself? Because Europe's not getting it done. Just getting older is not getting it done. Mm-hmm. Repeating relationship pathology is not getting it done. What's going to, outside of something cataclysmic, what's going to get it done, I think, is everybody understanding that we give no time or space for individuals to get to know who they are. And all of the stuff that is subconscious about ourselves, that's the important stuff.
Yeah.
Right? The reason why you knew, I have an out, that's all subconscious. But you didn't take 10 minutes to learn about, you're like, well, I don't know why.
No, but also I think for me personally, there was a security factor there too, right?
Sure.
Because I didn't have parents.
Yeah.
And, there wasn't that. And there was this person who would take care of me because we both not like that, but having that kind of stability and having somebody older and having security in that way was a huge factor for me. In hindsight. Obviously I didn't have that fucking self-awareness at the time,
right,
but that was a big part of it for me as well, right? Like, what do you know at 19? I don't know shit. I didn't know shit.
Well, nobody, but again, I was
everybody.
yeah
I thought I knew everything. I definitely thought I knew everything, but
What was the hardest part then about divorce for you? Your son?
No, yes, but breaking someone's heart was the hardest part for me, for sure. It wasn't me. I was sad. Don't get me wrong. Like, even though I didn't want it, it's still terrible. I still grieved it. That's a huge part of my life,
And
right?
he was, by all accounts, like, you're one of your best friends.
He still is.
You know,
He
like
still
that,
is.
he is
Like,
that person. So now you're really gonna...
For sure. That's my everyday.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, this is not, the best, whatever, that's your everyday.
Yeah.
So it's a real kick in the ass. That part was for sure the hardest. And, a child. But for me, I was like, I would like my son to, because it wouldn't have been a good environment for him to grow up in. It wouldn't have necessarily been like terribly abusive or whatever, but we wouldn't have been kind to each other. We would have fought like we were 15. It wouldn't have been a great place for him to grow. Whereas now he gets to see two healthy parents who choose their life, who choose to be kind to one another, who raise him together, Like, logistically, it's shit that he has two houses. Like, that's not ideal. But there's a lot of other benefits for that. But, it sucks for him. Collateral damage. Like, that's the hardest part.
Now, for me, it was the opposite to you.
It was the exact opposite.
And the reason why Stacey can very much speak to me going through my divorce is because I was in her house on her couch for the better part of, I'd say about 3 months.
Yeah.
I'd say it was real garbage.
Really the whole thing, just the prior.
Yeah, so
right
from
through.
let's say December 1st, I went backwards in time. December, January, February. By March, I was like, okay, I can stand up again. I don't feel like I've been punched in the stomach.
Your ex-wife would say differently, but you were blindsided.
Oh yeah.
You were...
Well, and let's address that, because at that time I was very much blindsided. I was very much like, holy crap. I had, and then I kept believing different things about what was going to happen next. And Stacey would very softly go, "Jo, are you sure? Are you sure?"
No, I know.
Like in my particular situation, there was
Let's
another...
talk about it, Joe.
Yeah, Stacey's been dying to.
Let's
there was
talk
another
about
person.
it.
There was another person.
You got married. What year?
2009.
And you had been with your then wife
For a year.
For a very short amount of time.
Yep, that's true. It was a year, and then we got married. Now, some people say that's the problem, that I got married too quickly, but I don't think that was the problem at all, because I could have been with her for 5 years, still got married, had the exact same problem.
You were together for like 10, like it was a good chunk of time.
12, almost 13, yeah. 12 years. So yeah, I don't think waiting would have solved it, because, and then when I look back on it, in those early days, I was very much, well, I don't even know if I blamed her. I was just a mess.
The early days of the divorce or the relationship?
No, of the divorce. Like, sorry, when I was in your house. I don't even think I sat there and complained. I was trying to probably fashion ways. Well, you know this. I was probably trying to figure out ways to fix it.
Okay, we're skipping way forward.
Right?
So you got married in 2009.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
And then your marriage was what?
12?
No. Good, bad, the other.
Well, yeah. It was. There were happy times, but it was a lot of me being sort of this person, always being sort of stable, fixing, problem solving, all of those kinds of things. And she was very much a person that would have, super highs and super lows. I thought it was my job, and again, she'd been through not the best of circumstances in her younger years, and I thought it was my job to just love her more. Right? Okay, you've been through this. We talk. Okay, cool. I'm gonna prove to you how great somebody can be. How I will never walk out that front, and I never did.
No.
I will never walk out that front door. I will always be the first to make sure that you're always right. And then, and so so I had a lot of this.
Yeah.
Right? It was a lot of calls home to see tonality of voice, and then I would know what my night was going to look like.
Right.
But again, looking back on that was happening before I even got married. And so when I start looking at that, I start thinking about, what did I choose to do? What did I choose to accept? Why on God's green earth I couldn't draw a healthy boundary to save my life? And those are the thoughts that I have later, right? But it was always like, everything is perfect, amazing, you're my hero, to you're the worst person on the planet, I'm packing, I'm leaving, I'm taking the cat, whatever. Like, it was always those kinds of extremities. So I got very used to that. And then over time, you know, it was very much, very slowly, like, this person's bad for you, Joe, so I don't talk to them anymore, or this family member, or whatever. And there were some legitimate, it's not like you never have legitimate problems with family or legitimate problems with friends, but it was all about excommunicating.
Yeah.
Right?
Just isolating you. But really, we, as an outsider, or myself,
nobody
had no idea.
No.
Had no idea that was happening behind the scenes.
Well,
like,
I would never.
No, you never said
I would
to
never
us,
say.
She doesn't like you. Like,
well, and it wasn't that she didn't like it. Was,
No.
It was, again, and I've talked about this quite openly. It was about.
But we hung out a lot. We hung out a lot. Like.
Yeah. But it was about perception, right? And again, I thought I could fix this perception. So
you did.
If somebody with you know, those kind of issues, I mean, we can use. I'm not going to use psychological terminology because I don't. But it's not appropriate for me to label. But to walk into a room and have you tilt your head a certain way, and then to walk out of that room and say, "Did you see how Stacey tilted her head at me?
Yeah,
what was that about?"
Totally.
And that was I'm not even exaggerating on that particular thing.
For sure.
And that happened with everybody, her family included. We would go be somewhere, have in a social environment. I would think, if I thought it was a great night, I'd get in the car and it would be a list of reasons wrong. We're never going back there. Did you see what they said? Did you see what they did? Did you hear that tone in her voice? And I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
And then if I thought it went badly,
like
if I thought, because the older I got, the longer we were together, I'd start to sort of mitigate. So I'd hear somebody say something, and then I'd try to reword it so that, you know, it didn't come off as that, or I'd try to expand the context, or I'd try something to. And so if I thought I was going to get in the car and it was all going to go to, you know, the way it would be like, well, that was a great night, and I'd be, what? I'd have no idea.
No, but we had no idea. No. Honestly, like we obviously talked about it months later, and you were like, this would happen, when I was like, what?
Well, that's another thing. You feel like an ass, right?
Well, why would you feel like an ass? You're not going to call us and be like, hey.
But here's the thing.
She had a terrible time at your house because you blinked heavily.
Well, but this is the thing,
right?
Is that in my relationship, and this is where I start taking a hell of a lot of accountability, because this happened with my family, this happened with other friends, this happened consistently, and instead of me sort of taking it on front end and important people in my life and saying, you know, this happened and trying to figure it out, I would hide it. I would try to mitigate. I would make excuses. I would, in some capacities, I just would stop hanging out with those people altogether.
But I think it was because you loved her. And it was she.
But that's not love.
But
that's
she
broken.
positioned it as a them or me.
Sure, all the time.
So who are you going to pick?
Yeah, well, if you walked in and I didn't notice that you tilted your head to the left, and I get in the car and I'd say, you know, I don't know what you're talking about. That would be way worse.
Right.
Because then all of a sudden, I would be taking your side, which didn't even exist at that particular moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or whoever's side. And then there were legitimate times where there would be words said and maybe arguments had where I'd hear side A and side B, and we'd go somewhere else and she'd be like, did you hear what so-and-so said? I'm like, well, that didn't happen. So I remember one time actually, so moved into this house, have this house, built a basement apartment for my mom and grandma, and about 5 minutes after that happened, about 6 months, that wasn't okay anymore. And I'm like, well, this isn't something we can just jump out of.
Yeah.
Right? So we got to work through it. We have to have conversations about and there was a conversation with my mom in which, you know, this interaction happened, and I listened to my mom and I listened to her, and it all got worse and blah, blah, blah. And then she repeated what she thought my mom said.
Right.
And I went, well, now this is clear. There wasn't a head tilt. There was no insinuation. There was no... That those words were never said. And at that moment, that was quite a while before we got divorced, packed up her stuff, suitcase. And that was the first time I didn't, chase her out of the house.
Right.
And beg her to come back, or to say we'll talk about it, or have my mom apologize for the 1700th time, or whatever. That was the first time I went, I can't, I'm just too tired. I was just too tired. And she would cite that as the moment,
right,
in retrospect.
Yeah.
That was the moment she decided that this wasn't for her. Now, regardless of what happened thereafter, regardless of all the conversations that would happen after, that she would say, that was the moment. That was the moment I knew you weren't my person. Now, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't.
No.
That's the bottom line. Do I think she can find her person? I don't know. But I couldn't have been. And the reason why I couldn't have been is because it took me, I don't know how long that was into it, maybe 8 years, 7 years, whatever it was into the marriage, to finally say to finally draw the tiniest little boundary. And as soon as I did, I broke it.
Yeah.
It was like there was pushing. I'm never going to leave. I'm never going to leave. I'm never going to leave. We'll see. And all of a sudden, I still didn't go anywhere.
No.
But I did. Right? And so, but then I got very used to that.
Yeah.
So what am I, okay, everything's horrible. And then the next day, I'm the best person on the planet. So,
yeah.
So I just thought, even in that moment, I'm like, which is why, skipping forward to December of however many years ago.
Yes.
I probably just thought,
yeah,
this was just another one. So when she says things like, oh no, Joanna knows, and Joanna, we've had, sure.
For sure. I told her,
sure,
she knows about this other woman.
Oh, yeah.
Like you were aware that the other woman existed, but you were not.
Absolutely not. They were Listen, there was a moment. This is a funny story. So, she doesn't play Scrabble. Just sort of, it's all the same. Okay. And there was a moment I came home, and I knew about this other person, and it was all like very much framed like, I need other people. I need this. I need that. I need these things in my life. I can't. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Right?
Have friends. Go nuts.
Have friends. But it was always couched with, I can't help it if people have crushes on me. I can't, and I can't help it. You want me to help? Because this comes after. We'll go back to
really,
one of
hindsight,
our friends.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, it goes back to something that happened a few years prior. But it was always and then it always got really aggressive, and then I felt like I was accusing her of cheating, and she was, and I'm just like, oh, okay, all right, fine, do whatever you gotta do. So I came home or whatever, and they're playing online Scrabble, and I went, what are you doing?
Yeah. And
she go, and not really even in any sort of, and she's like, well, this is, we're playing. I go, at that moment, I should have been like, oh, well,
this is it. Yeah,
this is
for sure.
So when she says I should have known, look, in the moment where she pretended to like Scrabble,
for sure,
I should have been like, that would be like me, I don't even know what. That would be like me pretending I like working out and jogging.
For sure.
I don't know, something ridiculous.
Yeah. I love jogging.
I jog every day. Big, yeah. But so, of course, there were those moments. But again, they were always like either couched with, you're my world, you have nothing to worry about, or very aggressively, how dare you accuse me, or how dare you not have faith in me, or how dare you, how do I do it? And sure, they could have a crush, but, they're married as well. But nonetheless.
It's true. They're also married. Egg on your face.
What an asshole. But I keep going back. So when I came over here, it must have been early December. So when I was told, when I was told was 2 days. 2 days prior.
Done? No, or that she was going to.
She was already traveling. Yeah, she was already going to go travel for work. And it's at that point, it was like made up work
to play at McDonald's.
By that work that she had to do, and she was going to go travel. That 2 days prior to leaving, that's when. And I gotta tell you, I don't think you've ever heard the story, but that's when she said, just so you know, I have feelings for this person. And I'm like, and I'm gonna fly out there like tomorrow. And I was just like, and I got upset. Just so everybody knows, I have never in my life, I don't yell like that. When I was upset, I was like visibly upset. I was like, what? I don't, and that. And immediately I wasn't even allowed to have that emotion.
Right.
How dare you be upset? Don't talk to me like that. Don't. And I'm like, I get no feelings here?
No.
None whatsoever? The worst part was, it was at the Dr. Seuss, because she messed up Dr. Seuss for me. There was that Dr. Seuss exhibit in Mississauga where all that artwork up. I was so excited to go there.
Yeah.
She already knew all of this.
Yeah.
And she planned this night out for us, by the way, in which I ended up buying... we went to and I bought something for her, and then we went to this thing and blah blah blah, and it was on the way back, and I'm just like,
you bankrolled this affair.
What just happened?
You bought plane tickets. You bought hotels.
I did.
You did.
No, I did.
Well,
listen, on the money front, a lot of people are like, well, divorce is an economic killer. It is. On the money front, I will say with much respect, and is that she was very respectful. She could have really sort of destroyed this house and me taking care of my mom and grandpa. She could have really done that very, very, very easily. Mm-hmm. She chose not to. No, she chose not to because she was I'm not going to say why she chose not to, but she wanted it done quick, and everything else would have taken very, very long. Mm-hmm. But I remember going into school and I was a mess. So I would be a mess. I would come here. I would go to your house. I would talk to Amy. I would go to school, and every single place, different people would talk to me and try to take care of me. Like, it was just,
Wow.
It was also problematic because because of social media, mm-hmm. some of my students saw, because I wasn't saying anything mm-hmm. right away, and some of my students saw a post. And they thought they caught her in something. Oh. And they show up at my door. I was like 4 kids show up at my classroom door, and they look sick.
Oh no.
They look ill, and they're like,
have to tell her.
Joe, we have to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, okay, what went on? Do I need another teacher? No, you don't need another teacher. It's about, who's it? And she sits down. Yeah, they're full. It breaks my heart because, they're just trying to be very protective, but the way they sat down and they have their phone, and you could see one of them has it on their phone and they want to show it to me, and the other one's like, show it. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, and then they said her name, and I go, okay. Yeah. I go, guys, you can stop. Mm-hmm. I already know. Yeah. I already know all about it. You don't have to know, you don't have to care. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I already know it's a disaster, but thank you. Yeah. But it's okay, right? And then, unfortunately, because, my students are who they are, sometimes there were messages that were sent, and there were, posts that were made.
Well, you're lucky you don't have the same following now that you had then.
Gosh, it would have been a disaster.
That would have been rough times.
But I didn't. There is no way, shape, or form that I would ever tell any of those students the parameters of it. They found out because they could see it. Yeah. So that I couldn't.
She wasn't sneaky about it.
No.
It was a pretty quick turnaround on the socials.
So they got and so I had to have another talk with them, and then I got blamed at it from this way, and I'm like
you're sicking students on her. Come on.
You think I've told it? By the way, I haven't told them anything.
This is embarrassing for me.
You think I wanted it?
Why would I want this? No, not at all.
And I remember going into school, and because when I think about it now, and so, you look back and you think, what didn't I bring to the relationship? And again, I had 0 boundaries. 0. Absolutely none. Why didn't I have those? Where did I learn that? My mom jokes, she's like, well, I hope, you or me and your dad getting divorced was a thing that hurt. I'm like, I don't think so, Mom. I think it was the way my mom loved family. She never had another relationship, but you still learn how to love from your parents. And my mom loved her family, her brothers and sisters, her extended, the same way I thought love was supposed to look, which was, I will never walk out that door. I will never call it a day. There is nothing you can say, you can do, no way you can take advantage of me. That if you are my family and friend or partner, exactly. And I said this to Mom, I will never walk away. My mom has just learned the need, and barely, at 75 years old. Just now. And it had to get real bad, real horrifically bad for her to learn that. And so as I've gone through it and kind of talked to her about it, you know, it didn't really change. She needed to go through it herself, but that was the problem. And when I talk about love and relationships, understanding how to love somebody means, and it sounds cliche, you have to figure out how to love yourself first. But in order to love yourself first, you need to know yourself first. You need to know what's okay and what's not okay. And what's not okay doesn't mean that other person is bad.
No.
Right? Like, if a lot of people talk about attachment styles and like how you fight with one another. You guys had a horrible way of fight with it. So did I. Because for her, in that dynamic, it was fight or flight for her.
Yeah.
And for me, I would always just stay. So every time she needed time to go walk away for an hour, my anxiety and everything, I've just been abandoned. And if I pushed the fight when she wasn't ready, she would feel attacked and not be able to calm herself and have dialogue. That's
similar with me, Lou.
That's huge problem if you don't figure out how to do that.
For sure.
Right? But you need compromise on both sides. Now, and for whatever, and again, I would see it as abandonment, not because anybody walked away. My mom taught me that. Joe, if we're going to have a fight, we're going to throw down until we're so tired we fall asleep, and then we'll make sure we sit, you know. That was, I never needed that, but I also don't ever fight. I don't ever, very rarely do I ever have a low blow. Do I ever give that?
Yeah.
I don't get super loud. I always try to stay here, because I don't like that. Once in a blue moon.
Sure.
Yeah.
Obviously.
One time at the end of that marriage, when I came upstairs and everything was kind of sorted in the sense that decided on money stuff. By the way.
Yeah, what a mess.
Like, and from what I understand, even if you do prenups, even if you do they all get challenged anyway if you want. And it's just like going through a forensic audit of sorts is exhausting.
Yeah.
And
it is exhausting.
Horrific, and
money is messy.
And it's devastating to both people. You never come out better, ever.
No.
I don't care who you are. But at some point, I walked up, and again, she's still living here. She's living in and before she left, so I would overhear sometimes conversations or things like that. I overheard something I shouldn't have. And that time I got a little loud. and then I said, I'm gonna first time in my entire life. Now great, the relationship was obviously over, but I said, I'm gonna remove myself. Because and I drove away, and I called actually Ben. And I said, that's it. Because I thought if I kept everything here, I could figure, because I was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to take care of my mom and my grandmother like the way it was. I was so worried about those financial situations. So I'm like, I just increased anger or whatever. And now that's all going to be blown up.
Well, you were really mitigating the whole, like, I don't want her to lash out and fuck me over.
Yeah.
Right? So absolutely. I still have to manage her emotions and her everything.
But I did that for a long time. Yeah. She had moved out of here, and this is all on me. I want to understand when I'm talking about this, that I don't even have blame anymore. I only have awareness or a lack of awareness about me in that situation. The hurt and the crying and I don't, that you had to go through, and I don't think I could have hit any lower. But the other stuff, that's on me, about the way that I handled it or didn't handle it, like all of those things.
Yeah, you were available way too long.
You would say,
I'm like, hey,
you got yeah, I'd go over.
Doesn't need to call you anymore.
Yeah, I'd go, and this lasted, so out of the house, in with another person, calls, however long I was getting phone calls and stuff. Now, granted, there were some logistical things figuring out. But yeah, I would still, for a long time, if she said, this is, something's horrible, I need you, I'd...
For sure. But really, like, from her perspective...
I was that person.
You were her person.
Yeah.
You were her person for a decade, Yeah. So why would she still not go to you? I mean, should she come to you to complain about another partner? Probably not. Probably not. No. But that would have been her go-to. And we were like, stop
and I would have set
being
that
available.
Up.
You did, for sure.
I set that up.
For sure.
And then going back into what fed me, that's how I would gain some kind of self-worth and value in a situation where where it was all stripped away. But again, what a ridiculous way, and again, a judgment on myself, what a ridiculous way to gain a sense of self.
Yeah, self-worth.
Or self-worth or identity, right? Because for a very long time, and then after this all happened and it came to, I started TikTok and I started doing all these things, and you and Lou were like, who are you?
Listen, friends, here's the thing. Her previous wife was the extrovert.
She liked a lot of the energy.
Yes,
yeah,
she took up the space, which is no problem. That's just who you are. I take up space too. So Joe was never...
I got quiet.
You know what I mean? Like, she was never loud, never big, never opinionated. Obviously in our house and hanging out and stuff. Sure. But it was never... You were never the spotlight. And then that ended, and then all of a sudden Joe's doing like lip syncing TikToks and like talking to the camera.
Listen,
we were like, what the
That might have taken a turn. What? I don't know.
Sometimes it was rain and then it came back.
Listen,
and we were like,
that was a feature on TikTok. Everybody did it.
But we were like, who the shit is this? What is this?
Well, and it's really funny because it was almost like I was questioning that too. Because it was slow. It wasn't. I always had a big mouth. I always was that big person in the room, but it wasn't instantaneous in a relationship. You stop being who you are. It is a slow burn. It's
but
a
you weren't the big person in the room because you were all. If she was in the room,
but I was.
Sure, prior.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you prior to
exactly. Like
to
when you guys got to know us, it was just later in that situation, right? So like when I. Before I got married and when in those early years, I really was. And I still was in some capacities because I would just figure out how to turn it on and turn it off when need be.
You could just never outshine.
Exactly. Just because I didn't feel the need to compete, but it shouldn't have been a competition anyways.
No.
But at the end, so when all that happened and then all of a sudden I was, lip syncing on TikTok. You can go back and see those anytime you want.
I have them saved. I'll send them to you.
She's a liar. She's never watched them.
Those ones I watched.
But as I started doing that, the reason I did that is, well, I was trapped. We were all trapped in my house. This all happened pre-COVID and everything went to hell in a handbasket. I was trapped in my house.
It was literally like...
the worst. But it was the worst and the best timing for me because I was forced to sit in it.
Yeah, it probably accelerated
sit in it. Yeah. Like I had no choice but to get over it, to think about it. I watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy. I had no choice, none whatsoever. And then as I started feeling better, a little bit more myself, I started doing things that scared the shit out of me, to be honest. I started, which as silly as that is, that it's like an element of acting, which I think I always liked, even as a kid, but I was always terrified to do because nobody ever wants to look stupid. I'll tell you what, to me, divorce made me look the stupidest I will ever.
Only to yourself.
Only to myself.
Yeah.
I get it.
We were like, Joe's so stupid. As if she didn't know.
I went into Metro and Ryan looked at me. Ryan, probably one of my best friends. We've been teaching together for 20 years. And he sat me down after what a mess. And he goes, I know you, Joe. He goes, you're hurt now, you're upset now, you're going to cry, you're going to go through all this thing. But the one thing that probably bothers you the most when you get past all this is you think that you have failed and you look stupid. And he goes, that's just about your ego. That's not about what happened. That's not a real perception. And it took me a long time to admit that and to get to that. Because you feel like an idiot.
Oh, for sure.
You feel like I just did
I was
all
embarrassed.
of
I'm like,
this.
I'm so embarrassed
Right.
that this didn't work, that I couldn't do it, that, you know, like, what a loser.
And all of the things, also for me, all of the things that I had never told anybody. And then I start going, oh my God, I let that happen. I let that happen. I let that happen. I told my family I couldn't see them then. I told my friends. And then I start thinking, what a horrible person, what a weak, pathetic individual I was for doing all of those. Well,
we also didn't know it. Like,
exactly.
Nobody else thought any of that
But I think there's an element, maybe I'm not weak and horrific and any of those things, but I have to if you don't take ownership and you don't look back at that and go, what do I need to do? Where did I misstep? Because that was on me.
Yeah.
That was on me. Those choices, even though it was set up as you stay married or you do this, but I still made those very, very bad, hurtful. I've had to make a lot of apologies to a lot of different people because I never stopped seeing you guys. I just talk her back into it.
It's rude.
Come back. I cried on your couch for so long. That's as
Ate
much
so
of an
many
apology
salads.
as you need.
So many salads.
When
Guys,
I
Jill
had-
came over. She weighed 47 pounds.
I lost a bit of weight.
Yeah. She looked gaunt.
No, it was bad. When I look at those videos, because there's video footage of really
It's
how
true.
skinny I
It's
was
true.
at that point. I'm like,
Mine was the same. I lost 30 pounds. Because
Yeah.
you're just so stressed.
So
like,
stressed.
I don't stress eat. I stop eating.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to throw up. So
Exactly.
Mine was
exactly.
the same. I love
People
it. It
were
was
bringing
awful.
me like booster juices. I'm like, I can't drink
Yeah.
it anymore, and I can eat it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came over and you're like, Joe, you gotta eat something. What do you want to eat? And I'm like, this was a little bit on the mend too. And I'd be like, I don't know. And Stacey made me a chicken Caesar salad, guys. Remember when Anna made me that bowl of soup but it came in the vat?
Yeah.
When I was sick with COVID, Stacey made me a salad bowl size.
It was like a barrel of salad.
And she put it in front of me, and she goes, you're going to sit there for as long as it takes until you've eaten that. I swear to God, I was at 4 hours later. I'm still, piece by piece, this was going down. But it was kind of a bit of a turning point. Because you guys know when you don't eat for a long time, your stomach just stops carrying.
Yeah.
And so it's this horrible cycle. And I feel like that might have been a turning point where I actually, I wasn't even, McDonald's must have, we should go back and check
It's true.
McDonald's
Stocks and
corporate profit, because I'm pretty sure it took a
Large dip.
big dip.
Right around there.
But yeah, and then as soon as all of this, like a good friend of ours went through, it was contagious. And then another friend of ours went through, we had Amy and then a couple different people, and all of a sudden everything,
Yeah. It was contagious.
fell apart all at the same time.
But then it all came back together.
And so much better.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you are going through a divorce or you're thinking about a divorce or you have been placed in a position where a divorce has happened to you, it can be devastating, absolutely, and awful, and you feel like there's no other side of it, but like there absolutely is. Like the only way through it is through it, which is the worst, but
Just
like
the worst.
you have to go through it. You have to accept it. You have to move forward. And then you get to choose. That's the thing too that I've said to everybody who is starting a new, chapter, who's been divorced, whatever. It's like, you are in such a beautiful position now where you get to design your life. You do. Like, you have this knowledge now of what you don't want, what's acceptable, what you want for yourself, and you can choose it from a place of like this knowledge that you didn't have.
You know what though? It's funny that you say that. I don't think that knowledge took me a long time.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not overnight. It's not like I'm divorced. Woo!
well, no, but I think it took me, and I've said this many a time, and I've said this on lives and things like that. Had I not met Anna, had I met somebody else, somebody that was reminiscent in any way, shape, or form of my ex, I would have been screwed.
You think you would have been into it again? Like, you wouldn't have seen the flags?
I don't think.
I think we would have.
You guys would have, but
We're
I
like,
wouldn't.
don't do it!
Don't do it!
This is not the one!
But the thing is that because this was such the norm for me.
Yeah.
Right? Had I been, and by the way, that's not the beginning of, like, the beginning of that relationship of my marriage was love bombing, and I was right?
Yeah.
And that lasted years.
Yeah.
Big, big, big things, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'd entered into with a person like that, you don't see, because it's such a slow burn, you don't see that right away.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had the mental capacity. I don't think I was healed nearly enough. I don't think I was aware. I hadn't gone to enough therapy yet. I hadn't done nearly enough to not get trapped in that had I met the wrong person. But I happened to meet this person, which is pretty brilliant, who's shining numbers at us as we're doing this podcast, who I met this person who not only gave me space to, I don't want to say be an idiot, but in some capacities be maybe a little bit overreactive, or I'd have, instead of having no boundaries, I had like stupid ones. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Just big, like, I am not doing that. I have to say no, because I hadn't said no in 12 years. But she would be able to take a step back and go, okay. And then afterwards go, listen, that whatever happened 5 days ago, what was that about?
Let's circle back.
Well, can we just go back and talk about that a little bit? Because I want to see where, and it was this level of calm and this, but this level of eye-opening and, not just healing, but becoming more self-aware, even of the things where I thought, well, now I feel very much okay by saying these things. I have this person who says, you're going to go to Lou and Stacey's. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? It doesn't matter. Go, what? I'm fine. I'm a person. Go hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
Like last night, I just messed up a plan. She had been planning this whole thing, and I had cognizant memory. She had this whole special night planned, and I said, I came home because I made plans the day before, but I didn't know she planned anything.
Sure.
And I had to go up and see, I adopted a senior. I went to this whole tour thing, and I said, oh, that's what I'm doing. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, well, I had this whole thing. And I'm like, oh, but I can't say no to these. She's like, okay, it's fine. But had that been in a different relationship,
yeah,
it just, and I'm so thankful for that, even though I'm sorry that I messed a surprise, but I'm thankful being able to have a conversation that looks something like, this is important to me. I want this to happen. If it can happen, that's okay. There's no
we'll figure it
volcanoes going off. However, you still need to know what my boundary, or you still need to know what's important to me or what's important to her, and back and forth. And it's, this insane, it's not that we don't have fights, even though they're not, but we have definitely big, serious discussions that we talk until we're done. And
you have to. Lou called them Speak Our Truth nights.
Right?
We went to dinner the other day and we're like, we're going to have a Speak Our Truth dinner where we have to discuss everything that's on our mind, things that are important, what's going, because it escalates, right? It turns into something else.
Absolutely.
Whereas we can just, let's have this conversation grown up. Whereas my ex and I, we wouldn't have talked about it at all until it hits boiling point.
Right.
Right.
And then you're still
it's
never talking about it.
And then we're talking,
else.
yelling at each other, not absorbing anything.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important to talk.
Well, I think that's the most, because in order for people to have those honest conversations, the first thing they have to feel is 100% safe that person's not going to go. That I can be 100%.
But also, I would say, not even. You don't have to feel 100% safe that person's not going to go, because you truly don't know. But I think you have to feel 100% safe in the knowledge that if they do,
you'll be fine.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
Good. It's not great. I don't want it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm good.
Well, and I think if, because I would say that I was very codependent. I would say a lot of things about my prior relationship. But yeah, that's the number one thing. And we all say it. I think a lot more people say it than truly feel it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm good on my own. I'll be told, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm good on my own. You have to really go through it to prove to yourself that you are, in the absence of something you desperately thought was the other. Like when people say, well, they're half of me or they complete me. That damn Jerry Maguire movie really messed things up. Right?
It's true.
Because if that's the case, if you complete me, I've messed up.
Yeah. I'm incomplete by
I'm
myself.
incomplete?
Yeah, no.
That's messed up. But that's the idea of love, right? And so you think that's what you're striving for. And if that person completes you, or if you can't live without them, when you hear people, I can't live without, that's my soulmate. Then you haven't learned how to love yourself yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't really think you'll be okay on your own.
I think that's an important part too of the whole divorce and whatever. And I didn't do this, unfortunately, but I think having a good kind of chunk of time by yourself, because I, Lou and I were already connected when my divorce was ending. My marriage was ending. She had to grieve that with me, which blows. Like being with somebody, watching somebody grieve a different relationship while you're in it, that's shit. Like that's not a place that you want to be. So in a perfect world,
sure,
you could have some time. Time would be key to really be by yourself, like get comfortable with yourself, being alone, and then deciding kind of what you're after.
Do you think though that Lou having to go through that with you, even though it's not you don't want to, I wish it was perfect, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's something kind of impressive about that too, because that's the worst it's ever going to get.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like that's now it's just unfortunately the worst for you, not necessarily. But that's but seeing somebody at that space, and like, Anna's had to, and not so many conversations, but a couple times be like, I don't think this is about me. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, is it? Oh, it's not. It's a little PTSD. It's a little overreaction. Mm-hmm. My mom has it too. Whereas we try to mitigate, or we try to do all of those things, and then it takes a weird turn. And coming from her perspective, which is relatively rational, she's like, no, this one up. This is too much. I don't know what this is from. So I think I'm lucky I had that person that could see it and was willing to go through that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Just stick around through the
depths of despair. Yep. Pits of despair.
Not
depths. You should cough then. And then your voice
Don't
is
even
fine.
think about trying to escape.
It's a little Princess Bride for anybody.
They knew it.
Who does it?
They knew it. It's the best.
But I think that's the most important part. So when people say what's the most, it's the self-reflection.
Yeah.
The quicker you can get into, which is why TikTok was great for me. And my TikTok, it's not like my TikTok blew up right away. It really didn't. But what it did, and I'll be very honest with it, coming from a place where I was knocked so firmly on my ass, it gave me these beautiful people that I've met. I do a lip sync, and they would just, thank God I wasn't met with all the jackasses I might get met with today, but like this beautiful community that was just like, that was fantastic.
Totally.
You were so good. I was like, oh.
I loved how you threw that ring.
But I'm telling you, without that, outside, that's how I met Anna. I'm like, all of a sudden could sit up a little bit better and not feel like such a freaking loser.
For sure.
And I'm totally fine admitting that too.
I think that was the thing that we tried to say to you, or I did at least. It was like that your ex-wife was not necessarily the norm. You know what I mean? Like I think because you've been so isolated in that, it was like she is the exception,
right,
as opposed to being the norm. Right, not everybody's like that, and then every once in a while you'll find one. It's like there are lots of lovely people.
Sure.
Right? Like
it was just a matter of what you perceive to put in, and all of the I definitely looked at it like I just didn't, and I still sometimes say this, I just wish, I didn't waste so much time. And it sounds like we kind of put in the same time.
Yeah.
Different time periods. We put in the same time. But I say that, but I think, and this is the weird part, I think had it ended earlier, I wouldn't have learned the same things. Mm-hmm. And you've said this to me before, if it didn't end in that kind of sort of volcano meeting a tornado way, if it wasn't horrific, if it didn't rip everything out, I wouldn't have learned it.
No, you wouldn't have left.
I wouldn't have left. But even if she did, mm-hmm, and it was different, and it wasn't the way that we described, and I didn't feel betrayed, and all of that kind of stuff, all that ego crap that was in there with the sort of the competitive, even if it was different, I would have been connected for a lot longer.
Yeah,
I would have been her savior for a lot longer.
for sure.
I wouldn't have gone, it would have been, I would have got close, but I wouldn't have dipped so far down. It had to be that bad
Yeah.
for me,
Mm-hmm.
or else I wasn't learning that lesson.
It couldn't have been any different because it wasn't.
What?
Have you ever heard that before?
No.
It's like things could, you're like, I wish this didn't happen, whatever. It couldn't have been any different because it wasn't. You made the best decision you could at the time, right? Like that's why this is where, if you could have done something differently, if you could have learned the lessons earlier, if you could have seen her for who she was,
Right.
then you would have gotten out of it earlier, but you
I
couldn't.
feel like you just made an argument about time travel.
I wish.
I think you did.
Did I?
I think you did. It was why I have like an Infinity War moment coming into my brain where it's like you can't change any part of history because it already happened.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's done.
That's a side note.
Oh, divorce.
Oh, divorce.
Listen, so to nutshell it up, divorce is not ideal,
Unenjoyable. 0 to 10 stars.
but you'll be all right.
You'll make it
We're
through
both better
if you
for
go
it.
through.
Truly.
And if you focus on who you are, what you need, what your role was,
Mm-hmm.
and then how to actually start to put yourself first and be okay with you being on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that.
Because you're the shit. You want to hang out with you.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time. See you. Same bat time, same bat station. Hey, by the way, stand by.
Oh,
Stacey Green Living wrote a cookbook.
Stacey Green Living wrote a cookbook.
And you guys are going to go have to check it out. You can go to Amazon if you live in Canada, or if you live in the United States, Britain, Norway, you go where?
Just the States. StaceyGreenLiving.com.
Well, you can't get it on Norway.
You can, but you have to send me a message privately because shipping is astronomical. But if you want to pay it, I'll get it to you.
Thank you so much, guys. We will see you next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat station. Have a good night. Dismissed.